We're here to bring a new type of news show.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Bringing news just for you. It's Tuesday, October 14th here in Seoul. I'm Isojin, and this is News Generation. Joining us today is Kyun.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming in. Also, Won Min's with us.
Good morning.
Good morning. And both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. So as we step into the second day of the work week, let's start with a buzz phrase that's been trending in Korea lately, young40. It's a term that's been popping up everywhere recently, from social media to the news, and it's sparking quite a bit of conversation about how people view age and identity today. And it's received even more attention as people live longer and stay healthier. So what used to be considered old is now seen as just another chapter full of possibilities. So Kyun, have you heard of the term young40 before? What does this mean?
Yes, I have, because it's been trending quite a lot lately and spreading quite fast online. The term first came out around 10 years ago, and it was a newly coined combination of words young and 40, young40. So it started as a concept of middle-aged people in their 40s who strive to maintain a young mindset like those in their 20s. Unlike the traditional middle-aged adults, they were better known for their sensitivity to trends with a youthful sense of taste as well. And they were also called terms like 꽃중년, 꽃 meaning flower, 중년 middle-aged, so figuratively meaning blooming middle-aged people or youthful middle-aged people with young spirits who could easily get along with much younger people.
I think on social media, I've also seen posts of Instagram posts of they make a list of celebrities who are people in their young 40s. They're still really popular. Have you also heard of this?
Yeah, so I heard of this term as well, young40. For our viewers, in Korean, we say 영포티 with a Korean accent. And like Kyun explained, it's a word that explains the impression of the people who are in their 40s in 2025, because I feel like things have changed a lot when it comes to their impression. Because in the past, when we hear that someone is in their 40s, I don't want to be too blunt, but we would usually think the words like old or not trendy anymore. In Korean we say 아저씨 and 아줌마. But now when you look at people who are in their 40s, they're very far away from being old or not trendy. They can use their phones or technologies without any difficulties, very active on social media, also cares a lot about their appearance as well. So yeah, this term literally refers to the people who are in their 40s nowadays who pursue a really youthful lifestyle.
I think before, in the past, when you think of people in their 40s, you think people that are a lot older. But now, obviously, they use their phones really well. They're very tech savvy. So as you mentioned, it's not just about being young at heart. It's a whole new lifestyle that blends confidence and a modern mindset. So it looks like this generation is redefining what it means to be middle-aged. So let's take a look at a video to learn more. As life expectancy continues to rise, the way we think about middle age is changing. What used to be considered old at 40 is no longer the case. Many in their 40s today are just as trendy, active, and connected as those in their 20s and 30s. The term itself carries a positive vibe, celebrating this new dynamic stage of life, but it's also sometimes used to poke fun at those who don't act their age. On today's episode of News Generation, we'll take a closer look at the meaning of young 40s in Korean society, explore how people in their 20s and 30s perceive them, and see how this generation is viewed abroad. As we just saw in the video, many people in their 40s are redefining what it means to be middle-aged. They're active, stylish, and often just as trend-savvy as a younger generation. They're embracing new hobbies, keeping up with technology, and expressing themselves through lifestyle choices that used to be seen as exclusive to people in their 20s and 30s. So it's a shift that really challenges old stereotypes about what life in your 40s should look like. And now when people hear the term young 40, a certain image often comes to mind. So what kind of image do they usually associate with it, Wonbin?
Well, I think it would be appropriate for me to explain what the public thinks and the image that the public has. And Ki-hoon will explain this further once I give you guys the actual impression that people have. And heads up, it's a double-edged sword. So for men, they would be wearing a snapback cap for the trendy fashion style. Plus, they must be wearing a sling bag or like an eco bag, sneakers for shoes, and the latest, newest flagship smartphone is also a must for the young 40s. And for women, they would be wearing a regular fit jean or slacks for that youthful, trendy fashion. And they would add a subtle luxury scarf or a luxury bag to kind of silently show how thick their wallet is. So as you can see in the picture, it's actually quite similar to what the MZ generation, what the younger people would actually wear, with just a bit of touch of luxury to show off their buying power.
As we saw on the screen, so it's interesting to see what youth means for both genders. For men, it often comes through casual, sporty looks like sneakers, snapbacks, and baseball-inspired outfits. For women, it seems like it's more about elegance and sophistication, often expressed through luxury accessories and polished, fashionable outfits. But the perception of the term young 40s has shifted. While it originally had a positive connotation, celebrating this new dynamic stage of life is increasingly being used in a more teasing or even mocking way, from what I know. So can you tell us more about this, Q?
Sure. So originally, young 40 had a positive meaning, but recently has come to be used in a mocking tone. It now refers to immature, middle-aged people who desperately want to stay forever young. In particular, it is often used sarcastically to describe middle-aged men who pretend to be quite gentle and open-minded, but are actually old-fashioned or patronizing, or 꼰대, as we call it in Korean. And the term sweet young 40 also emerged, satirizing 40-something male bosses who flirt with younger female co-workers under the disguise of being kind or charming. And there were even videos like online that went viral depicting the sad reality of the so-called sweet young 40s, where they pretend to know all the new trends in terms of the abbreviated words that many young people use to also fashion. And they think they're actually quite attractive to much of these younger women. But in fact, it is quite the opposite in reality, as everyone else views them as just old people who try a little too hard to look young. That doesn't really fit what they wear or how they express themselves. So in turn, like, they don't see them as very attractive, which is the sad truth. But I have actually seen a lot of men who actually dress like the photos we just saw, although they were AI generated. But I've seen a lot of men who actually just exactly wear like head to toe.
I've seen some too, yeah.
In that outfit. Some of them actually can pull it off, but I think at the end of the day, it's all about your body shape as well. I mean, if you have like a beer belly, obviously people might think, oh, why is he wearing that kind of tight shirt that many young people would wear? But I think, at the end of the day, it is what it is. Like, they want to express themselves, they want to look young, let them be. But there is a lot of clash of criticism and how we perceive things, but we'll tap more into it later. Yeah.
So that really shows how the meaning of the term can evolve from celebrating a youthful mindset to poking fun at certain behaviors. So it looks like the term can also carry a bit of satire, especially for those who try too hard to act younger than they are. And this makes you wonder how the broader public, such as people outside of Korea, also perceive the term. So to get a broader perspective, we reached out to our viewers on the ID9 News YouTube channel and asked, how do you perceive the term young 40? So let's take a look. So according to the survey, 57% of respondents viewed the term positively, while 30% perceived it more negatively. The remaining 13% fell into other or neutral categories. So it looks like more than half of people who think of the term positively as a reference to show how many 40s today are active and style conscious, but the 30% who see it negatively remind us that some still view the term as calling out people in that age group as trying too hard or not quite fitting that age stereotype. So as someone in their 20s, Wonbin, how do you personally view the term and people in their 40s in general, I guess?
Well, I don't, excuse me, I don't have many chances to meet or talk with people who are in their 40s. However, I do hear many stories from my students, and most of the stories that I hear are actually from work because their bosses or supervisors are usually in their late 30s or early 40s, which is the common age when people become or enter their phase of a young 40. The stories that I hear from my students are mostly negative stories, such as boss trying to be all trendy or trying to be sweet and nice to certain demographics only, or trying to fit into the younger group when everyone else clearly feels uncomfortable. But I did hear these stories even before the term young 40 became popular negatively. So I think it's more just about, general age gap or generation gap between people rather than specifically about the young 40s themselves. So yes, people often do complain about it. I hear it often, but I don't hear much direct hate towards the people who are so-called the young 40s.
So yeah, I agree with a lot of things you said. For many young people in the office, it seems like young 40 has become shorthand for that older colleague doesn't quite get us, often used more critically than as a compliment. It's interesting how a term that originally celebrated youthful mindset can shift kind of depending on who's using it and how it's being used. And speaking of perspective, so as someone in their 30s, how do you think the term young 40 is being used today, Kyun? Do people your age see it differently from those in their 20s, do you think?
Thanks for opening my age range. But yes, as someone in their 30s, I guess we are, less vocal about using the term young 40 compared to those in their 20s because we're not that far away from hitting the 40 mark. There's a smaller age gap, of course, but if we just look at the negative side, I mean, we can go on forever. And we can also talk about the 20s these days and how they're very different to the past generation, 20s of the past generations, how they are able to, not be able to connect with the older generation. They don't really want to communicate, and we can just criticize all day, and the list goes on. But to look at things from the bright side, personally, I think young 40s tend to be a bit more understanding across generations, especially their parents' generations, and they're at least trying to connect with the younger generation by looking into what they're interested in terms of like what they drink, what they like to eat, and like just the culture in general, the cultures of 20s. And I think in my experience as well, many of my friends in their 40s are quite stylish and, they are holding in a respectable position in society. And I do respect them for the success they've actually created. And we were talking about this before going on air, how the 40s now, back in when they were in their 20s, they work super hard. And that's why they're in that kind of social status at the moment. Therefore, they can actually experience and enjoy the luxury of trying to, dress young because they have that, a freedom as well, economic freedom as well. So I think I do respect people in their 40s, but I do understand how people in their 20s think, like one bit. But he's putting it in a very positive light. But I've seen many other 20s, people in their 20s, who are kind of very negative towards these young 40s.
Yeah, I think the reason why this becomes a topic of discussion is because they have such big roles in their companies, no matter what respective fields they are in. Like when I talk to my friends, like everyone knows a 40, someone in their 40s that they work with. But it comes from, like you said, they have the confidence of the experience, and they also have an important position in their company because they've had that work experience. I think that's why we're talking about that right now. So to get deeper understanding on this, we're going to hear from someone who's actually in his 40s. He'll give us a first-hand perspective on what it really means to be a young 40 today. That conversation will take place right after the break, so don't go anywhere.
NewsGen wants to hear from you. Go to YouTube and search out channel Arirang News. Click Posts and cast your vote in the poll. Make a new type of news with us.
Joining us today is Brian, a Korean in his 40s. Hi, Brian. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hello. Good morning. Thanks for having me on.
So from your perspective as someone in your 40s, what do you think about the term young 40?
Well, it is very interesting, and I'm the only in my 40s in this group, so I'm glad that I've been invited to this discussion. But as someone who is in my late 40s, not early 40s, so I believe young 40s seems to me that it's an interesting term, basically. I didn't get to know about this until I, was asked to speak about it. So what I'm saying is, it's a buzzword. It's it went viral, in a way, but not many people actually got to know about this until they, watched the video or something like this. So to me, at first I thought of it as something good because it's, young 40, so young carries a positive meaning, obviously. So that's what I thought. But as I did some research, and over time, obviously, people make fun of or scoff at the people in their 40s who dress like young.
Right.
Yes.
So, yeah, Brian, how do today's 40s differ from the previous generations in their 40s?
Okay. I would say, back in the day, in the 40s, put their family first, no matter what. I mean, they sacrificed their lives, for their kids. I mean, obviously, they were when they were young, they were poor and they were hungry, so they had to, work very hard to support their kids, and so they really sacrificed their lives. However, in contrast, these days, people in the 40s, I'm under the impression that they take care of their family as well, but that doesn't mean just they take care of themselves too. Their lifestyle, they pursue like a better lifestyle. They seem to have more hobbies. They just that's why that they kind of buy stuff. Thanks to buying power. You mentioned earlier. But that doesn't mean that they kind of intentionally buy things to look young or to act like they're in their 20s and 30s. They somehow kind of gradually with more money they earn, they seem to put their personal life before everything else. And not to mention that they do take care of their family as well. So I would say, in terms of the spending habits or the things they do, obviously, people nowadays put more focus on their personal life too, in addition to taking good care of their family.
Well, thank you for giving us the explanation of the differences between the past. And if you could give a piece of advice or share a message with people in their 20s and 30s, or us, what would it be?
I don't know. No, I don't know whether I'm the good person to give advice or kind of word of advice to people in their 20s and 30s. But going back to the young 40, I would say, young. I believe we will hear the term young 50 or young 60 later on. So the people in their 20s and 30s, obviously, they're young. So my take on it is, the advice I like to give them is have fun, because when they are young, they can do whatever they want to do. They can just enjoy their lives. But I know this society is full of concerns. In a way, they have they do have legitimate concerns as to whether to get a decent job or not, whether to make ends meet, whether to get a house later on. So there are many things that they have in their head. So I would say the question they have to ask themselves is whether or not they are having fun with their life, and just don't be afraid of getting old or getting older, because it's fun. It's fun to grow old, and it's natural. It's because it's a natural process. So I want people in their 20s and 30s to have something they want to enjoy, and then I would say I want to see them I want them to have something that they feel good about, or kind of that keeps them alive. So at the end of the day, so that's what they want to do in the 30s or 40s as they get older. So I don't think I'm kind of generalizing the generation 40 myself, and then I'm not in a good position to give advice. But as someone who lived longer, I would say enjoy your life.
All right, thank you so much for sharing your insight and giving us advice about how important it is to have fun. So thank you so much for connecting with us today.
Thank you for having me once again. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
So we just heard from someone who's actually in his 40s, but what it's considered to be a young 40, how today's 40s differ from previous generations, and what message you might have for people in their 20s and 30s. The term has clearly gained a lot of traction here in Korea, but it raises an interesting question. Are there similar concepts or memes about 40-somethings in other countries? So how do people abroad view this stage of life, and do they have their own versions of the young 40 woman?
Yeah, so actually in Japan, they have a term called arapo, which is a Japanese way of saying around 40. young40, and this term refers to women in their 40s who are not married but financially independent enough to enjoy life and look nice as well. So the difference would be is that it's only targeted for unmarried single women, but the idea is pretty similar with the young40, the word that we have in Korea.
So I think there is a tendency for unmarried older people to be targeted, especially in many Asian cultures where there's often social pressure to follow traditional life paths.
Yes.
But in Korea, things have improved a lot in recent years. TV shows and media now celebrate people who live alone, portraying them as independent, confident, fully capable of enjoying life on their own terms. So Kyun, can you tell us how people in their 40s are perceived in Western countries? Are there any terms similar to young 40?
Yeah, so in Western countries, the term frumpy is used to refer to people in their 40s who are kind of old-fashioned and a little overweight, whereas in contrast, fabulous 40s refers to those who are financially secure, active, stylish, and maintain a youthful lifestyle. And there are also expressions like 40 is the new 20 and life begins at 40.
So as we've seen today, the term young 40 sparks a mix of admiration, humor, and sometimes criticism. While there's been some controversy over how it's used, occasionally mocking those in their 40s, it also highlights an important shift in how society views this stage of life. People in their 40s today are redefining what it means to be middle-aged. They're active, independent, and embracing life on their own terms. So rather than being seen as old, 40s should be celebrated for the new possibilities they represent. A reminder that age is just a number and that this decade of life, like any other, can be just as vibrant, dynamic, and inspiring as your 20s. And this brings us to the end of today's episode of News Generation, but we'll be back tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Korea time with more stories and conversations. A big thanks to Kyun,
Always a pleasure.
Gavin, also Wonbin,
Thank you for having me.
for coming in. And to our viewers, thank you so much for tuning in. We hope you have the best day. We are News
News Generation.